We have two major administrators in the first 30 years of the California missions, and they were of two separate methodologies. The first administrator that we all know when you study California missions, because his name comes up somewhere, is Father Junipero Serra. Father Junipero Serra's policy was, when you go to the other fathers, when establishing a mission, and when trying to reach out to the native peoples, that the first thing the padre was to do was to go to the native village, to seek out the elders, and to ask the elders permission. May we come to your village? May we teach about our ways to your people? Early on, it's a small operation. When Father Junipero Serra dies, there were about 30,000 Indians in the missions, at 9 missions that they had encountered. Baptisms, the numbers had been small because of his methodology is ask the people's permission. And in the early encounters, there were years of great disasters basically through disease. And so a lot of native peoples simply left the missions. If you saw everybody dying, who would want to stay? First thing you do, and so this becomes the big problem at most California missions, is runaway Indians. Who would want to stay at a place that is ridden with death by disease? You go. Father Lasuen, who succeeds Father Serra in 1785, is in charge until 1803. The numbers have doubled, and they've more than doubled on the mission, as have the number of crops, the number of cows, the number of pigs, the number of horses, the number of military, and the number of Spanish occupiers, because now more and more people are coming as the Spanish way is being established. But the native peoples have continued to come to the missions for various reasons, and baptism is the entrance fee. In other words, to come and be part of this, to be part of the mission community, one must be a Roman Catholic. And the way one becomes a Roman Catholic is the ritual of baptism, having water poured over you.
In order to get native people to comply with the mission system, to work for the missionaries, they said essentially that in order to be buried in a cemetery where other Indians were buried, you had to accept Catholicism and be baptized. Otherwise, you couldn't be buried in a Catholic cemetery.
And so what we do is we have a period here of 15 and 18, 33 years, where the various methodologies have changed, where the responses of native peoples have changed. Somebody who has epitomized it in writing is Randy Milliken. His doctoral dissertation of 1991, which has been reworked into a book published entitled A Time of Little Choice. What Randy proposes is that at every one of our California missions, there comes a time when the native community looks to the mission and makes a decision for survival. And they move to the missions not because the priest has preached some great story about Jesus or some great story about the saints, or by the example of the life of the Christians, the native peoples feel, let's go there. But the native peoples, their world has been destroyed by the occupiers, by the animals that have arrived, by the Spanish guns that have arrived, by the European diseases that have arrived. And they look now to the missions, and they see the livestock there, they see the corn growing in the field, and they go, maybe, let's move into a mission and we can survive. Unfortunately, any group of native peoples that moved into any mission at any time, the result is an unmitigated disaster, basically because of the diseases and the death that follows. By 1806, throughout all of California, the diseases really hit, and it's the worst year. In February 1806, a measles epidemic breaks out at Mission San Diego. By April 1806, the epidemic is at Mission San Jose and at Mission San Francisco. At both of these missions, in less than 36 hours, over 300 Indians died at each place. So 1/3 of what was the current population died. The cemeteries were overwhelmed with burials. They were laid out woefully too small. In other words, they were all filled very rapidly. At Mission San Jose, the padres observed that after burial, at nighttime, the family would come to the cemetery excavate the body and take it down to the traditional village site for burial. This was going on for a period of time. So the cemeteries were also filling. So Father Duran gets an idea. How can I accommodate apparently what are the desires of the native people to be buried at their own village site? And how could we make this work that we have enough cemetery, because now we're getting more Spanish people at the missions. So when the Spanish die, there's room in the cemetery. And also, is there a way that perhaps this would assist in the conversions, the baptisms? So the Padres go down, it's about a mile away from Mission San Jose, to the old Indian village site, Orizon. They bless it with holy water. They raise a cross, just like establishing a mission or a presidio, and they consecrate the ground of the old Indian village site into a now Catholic cemetery. They go back, and we have it in the record books, the 200 burials that had happened in the new cemetery between 1809 and 1811 are excavated and located to the new cemetery, which is the old village. Every body is documented that's removed and relocated. And suddenly, at Mission San Jose in 1811, January, February, March, there's a surge in the numbers of baptisms. Well, here's the thing. Everybody now knows if I die or when I die, I can be buried in the old family village that is now a Catholic cemetery. But what was the requirement 200 years ago? To be buried in a Catholic cemetery, you need to be Catholic. What's the entrance fee? Baptism. So the people come in great numbers to Father Duran, and he writes this, he understands this. They're presenting themselves to be baptized. So at the time of their death, there won't be an argument over where can we bury this person. They can be buried in the family plot, as it were.
So all of these little tricks to get Indians to comply with their purpose as far as the missionaries was concerned, and that was the labor force, the slave labor force.
But the concern is about the ritual, conversion.
They didn't want to give up their traditional religions. When they were baptized by the Padres, they would seek the counsel of a native shaman.
There was a curandera, a holy woman. That's the Spanish word for a holy woman. By the creek at Mission San Jose, she had a house there. And she was a respected member in community. And she would tell the native peoples at the mission, you go on, present yourself to the padre. Let him pour the water on you. It'll be okay. Because when that's over, you come to me down here by the creek and I'll wash it away. I'll make it okay.
And she would wash away the water, the baptismal water, and cleanse them with running water in a creek or a river.
Yeah, you present, because we're fooling them. We're not really accepting that religion. We just want to be buried in our cemetery. You come over me, I'll wash it away and I'll heal it. Because remember, baptism is about healing and changing and making clean. So basically, she's using Christian ritual in a reverse way. Native accommodation. In other words, again, it's a method to survive psychologically.
They did these kind of things to resist what was being proposed to them, and what was being, they were forced into a bondage that I think they kept on resisting. I don't think there's any Indian people necessarily in the days of the mission occupation, the Spanish occupation, that was satisfied with it. It was hard to disengage from your traditional ways and move into a religious institution where you didn't even know the language. The Bibles in those days were all in Latin. The Mass was in Latin. None of it was in the Indian language. So it was pretty hard to understand what was going on. And I think on that level, there was great cause for resistance, because on the one level you were being indoctrinated to something you couldn't even understand, And on another level, they were taking away your way of life.